As Marcus prepared to confront Langley in the morning, he was certain he had the upper hand. But then, just as he was about to make his move, he received another encrypted message, this one with a shocking revelation. The message read, "Langley isn't the real enemy. You're being watched. Your new ally just betrayed you." Marcus froze. The last few days had been a whirlwind, but nothing had prepared him for this. His new trusted team member, someone who had seemed completely loyal, had orchestrated the entire series of attacks from the inside. The real mastermind behind the sabotage wasn't Langley. It was someone closer to him than he ever imagined. His ally had been playing both sides all along, feeding information to Langley or pretending to support Marcus's vision for the hotel. The realization hit Marcus like a ton of bricks, but there was no time for regret. The hotel's reputation was on the line, and now more than ever, he had to outsmart both Langley and the traitor who had been undermining him from within. In a tense showdown, Marcus exposed the betrayal, turning the tables on his would-be destroyer and revealing the entire conspiracy to the hotel's board and guests. But even as he thought he had won, something else occurred. As Marcus took a moment to reflect on his victory, a final message appeared on his phone, this time from an anonymous source. "This game is far from over. They'll never let you win for long." The suspense hung in the air, leaving Marcus, though victorious, on edge, knowing that even in moments of triumph, new challenges were just around the corner. In the days that followed, Marcus took control of the hotel, transforming it into a symbol of inclusivity and fairness. The old staff who had resisted change slowly adapted, understanding that the hotel's new direction wasn't just about luxury. It was about creating a space where everyone, regardless of background, was welcomed. Marcus cleaned house, removing those who had conspired against him and replacing them with a new team that shared his vision. As for Langley, his attempts to reclaim his former power were ultimately blocked. The legal battles he launched fizzled out, and Marcus emerged as the undisputed owner of the hotel. Yet, despite the victories, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the game wasn't over. The anonymous messages hinted at larger forces at play, forces that had watched him closely for years. But for now, Marcus stood tall, knowing he had turned a painful rejection into a victory for justice, equality, and resilience. The battle had been won, but the war, that was still to come. It was supposed to be just another day at an upscale hotel, but what happened next shocked everyone. A well-dressed black man walked into the lobby, confident and polite, hoping to book a room. But instead of a warm welcome, he was met with cold stares and dismissive attitudes. The staff, judging him solely by his appearance, claimed there were no rooms available, even though the hotel was nearly empty. Humiliated but calm, he left without causing a scene. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. The very next day, the same man walked through those glass doors again. But this time, everything was different. The staff rushed to greet him with forced smiles, not realizing he was no longer just a guest. He was now the new owner of the hotel. What happened in those 24 hours that changed everything? Stay tuned to find out how he turned rejection into the ultimate comeback. The man, whose name was Marcus, had always faced discrimination. Growing up, he worked harder than most, determined to prove his worth in a world that often overlooked him. He started from nothing, building his empire one step at a time. Through years of dedication, Marcus became a billionaire, known for his sharp business mind and ability to turn the most impossible situations into success stories. Yet, despite his wealth and achievements, society still treated him as less than, especially in spaces like the hotel he had just visited. When he walked out that day, the rejection stung, but he wasn't one to back down. What many didn't know was that Marcus had a plan in mind, something bigger than anyone could have imagined. The hotel, with its history of exclusivity and snobbery, was about to become the stage for a powerful lesson. But could he really turn things around in just one day? What was Marcus's next move? The next day, Marcus stepped into the hotel lobby once more. This time, he didn't come as a guest. As he walked towards the front desk, the staff, unaware of his identity, tried their best to appear accommodating, offering him a seat and asking how they could assist him. They had no idea that he was the one who had just bought the place overnight. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the hotel's owner, a man named Richard Langley, was in his office fuming. He had heard about the incident with Marcus the day before, but he was too proud to apologize or take responsibility. Langley had built his fortune on exclusivity, offering a luxury experience for only the right people. He believed that people like Marcus, no matter how wealthy, didn't belong in his world. To him, this was about power, about keeping his hotel as a symbol of status. Langley had no clue that Marcus was about to dismantle that world. As Marcus looked around, he could feel the tension building. He wasn't just out for revenge. This was bigger. He had spent years carefully calculating his next move, waiting for the perfect opportunity to break down the walls of elitism. But what Marcus didn't expect was the deep-rooted hostility some of the staff had toward change. Some of them weren't ready to let go of their long-held beliefs, and they were already plotting against him, determined to protect the status quo. Would Marcus' vision for transformation survive the battle that was brewing beneath the surface? As the day went on, Marcus quietly observed the staff's reactions. Some smiled nervously, others exchanged glances, and a few gave him cold stares, clearly still skeptical about his presence. It was clear that not everyone was ready to embrace the change he represented. In the back office, Langley paced, his anger boiling over. He refused to let someone like Marcus control his legacy. His empire had been built on keeping people like him out, and Langley wasn't about to let a simple billionaire upend everything he had worked for. But Marcus wasn't just fighting for a seat at the table. He was there to break it down completely. With his legal team working around the clock, the hotel was now under new ownership. Yet, Langley was pulling every string he could to reclaim control. Behind closed doors, he began planning a legal battle that could stretch for months, maybe even years. But Marcus had already thought of that. As the clock ticked closer to the evening, Marcus met with his new staff, many of whom were eager for the changes he promised. They spoke of new policies, more inclusive services, and a shift towards valuing all guests equally. Yet, Marcus knew that behind the smiles, there was a storm brewing. Some of the older staff members weren't as ready to let go of the status quo, and their loyalty to Langley ran deep. Secretly, they were plotting to sabotage the changes Marcus had envisioned. It was supposed to be just another day on the job, but what happened next left everyone speechless. A white police officer, frustrated and careless, disrespects a black woman in the worst way possible, spitting on her during a heated confrontation. What he didn't realize was that this wasn't just any woman. She was the newly appointed police chief, undercover and observing the department she was set to lead. The officer's ignorance and bias were laid bare in a matter of seconds, setting the stage for a powerful lesson he'd never forget. As tensions rise and the truth comes out, the reactions from bystanders and fellow officers reveal deep cracks within the system. But what happens when authority is challenged in the most unexpected way? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over, and the next part will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about respect, power, and accountability. The officer had no idea who he was dealing with. To him, she was just another face in the crowd, someone he thought he could belittle without consequence. But beneath her calm, composed exterior was a woman with years of experience, a strong sense of justice, and the authority to change everything. Just days before, she had been sworn in as the new police chief, determined to clean up the very department his officer represented. She had chosen to go undercover to see the truth for herself, without the polished uniforms and formal greetings masking the real culture within the force. The moment he crossed the line, a crowd began to gather, some recording, others frozen in shock. Whispers spread quickly. Did he really just do that? But she didn't react with anger. Instead, she stood tall, her silence more powerful than any words. Little did he know, his actions had just exposed more than his own prejudice. They had sparked something bigger. The officer's smug expression quickly faded as murmurs grew louder. Phones were out, recording every second. But the woman remained calm, her eyes locked on his, not with anger, but with a quiet authority that unsettled him more than shouting ever could. He barked orders, trying to regain control, but his words felt hollow. The crowd wasn't listening to him anymore. They were watching her. Meanwhile, inside the precinct, whispers of the new police chief's undercover operation had been circulating, but no one knew when or how she'd show up. Some officers welcomed the change, tired of the toxic culture hidden behind badges. Others, like the one standing in front of her, clung to outdated power dynamics. As backup arrived, the officers' discomfort grew. Fellow cops exchanged uneasy glances, realizing something was off. But it wasn't until she quietly pulled out her badge.